Many Vault Hunters across the franchise tend to have certain skills that end up as point fodder, a skill taken purely for the sake of moving down the tree. Now, some very good skills are sometimes point fodder. They just end up as the best place to put points for a build that might not necessarily get value out of that skill. But then there's some cases where skills practically only exist to be point fodder, and in the case of Amara's red tree, she's got 3. So today, I want to yap about Wildfire, Catharsis, and Conflux, Amara's point fodder skills. We'll talk about these in order of appearance, so we will start out here with Wildfire, a tier 2 skill where whenever Amara applies a status event to an enemy, it has a chance to spread to a nearby enemy. This is a 5-point skill that gives 8% per point invested, up to a total of a 40% chance to spread that dot. This is an incredibly simple and straightforward skill, and honestly, on its own, there's not really a whole hell of a lot to talk about with it. It is kind of a neat skill, allowing you to dot multiple enemies from a single application, and given that Amara is incredibly good at spreading dot effects as is, especially with her red tree, it's a lot of applications that can potentially spread further. So with all the dot effects she already applies, even just a single point into Wildfire, it's very likely that during mobbing you're gonna get a lot of value out of this proccing. The biggest issue with Wildfire is simply that dot effects themselves, generally, I know some dorks out there will correct me, I know dot builds exist, but we're talking generally, they are not very good and do next to nothing at the endgame of BL3. There is very little actual tangible value that you get out of applying more dots to literally everything. The only exception is that Wildfire is very good for applying Harmageddon to more enemies. I suppose I will briefly talk about Harmageddon itself because it's going to be very relevant for this video. Harmageddon is a tier 7 skill within the Guardian rank Hunter tree. It makes enemies take 5% more damage per unique status effect affecting them. This is up to a total of 25% if you have Incendiary, Shock, Corrosive, Cryo, and Radiation on a single enemy. Now, while this doesn't sound like a lot, even at 5%, it actually kind of is, because the only other thing that Harmageddon is additive with is Laid Bare. This is almost an entirely unique multiplier, and therefore, it is incredibly valuable, and it's pretty damn good for Amara, especially since she already has a very min-max damage formula. So having ways of more consistently applying it and stacking it even higher is pretty damn valuable for her. Think of it as an extra potential piss grenade that is multiplicative with the piss grenade. Up next is a 3-point tier 4 skill, Catharsis. Whenever Amara triggers an elemental effect on an enemy, when that enemy dies, that enemy explodes, dealing her attuned element damage along with any other element that is currently inflicted upon that enemy. This skill has a short cooldown. Each point in this skill simply increases the base damage of it, and that aforementioned short cooldown is 8 fucking seconds. Catharsis, I think, is the most interesting of the 3 and actually has potential to go beyond point fodder and actually be a really good use of 3 points, if not for the 8-second fucking cooldown on this thing. Just for reference, Zane's skill Best Served Cold, video coming on that in the future, is a nearly identical skill and function, only difference is that it has a 3-second cooldown instead of 8 and is only cryo damage. Best Served Cold is a fantastic skill for helping to clear out large amounts of enemies, whereas Catharsis is really good at the same thing but does it over 2 times less frequently. 8 seconds is a really long fucking time in combat in Borderlands 3. Effectively, you get 1 pop of Catharsis maybe every other group of enemies depending on where you're mobbing at. And if you happen to accidentally waste that cooldown on a single enemy, well, you're not gonna have it for the upcoming group, so get fucked, bozo. Catharsis is effectively an instigation tool that, similarly to Wildfire, is a way to spread dots quickly to get damage out of Harmageddon, which of course, the dots applied through Catharsis can spread further with Wildfire, giving you some strong synergy between these skills. The only difference is that Catharsis can actually kill things itself sometimes, which is nice. It also just visually looks pretty damn cool. This is one of my favorite skills to pick up on Amara, just because it makes gameplay even more blinding in the best way possible. I'm a big fan of Catharsis, and god, I wish it wasn't an 8-second cooldown. I do understand it being a bit of a longer cooldown than Best Served Cold, because Best Served Cold is only ever cryo damage, and Catharsis is able to spread dots of pretty much all types applied to whatever enemy explodes, but it really should only be like 4 or 5 seconds at most. 8 is actually obscene. And for our final of these 3 skills is Conflux, a tier 5 5-point skill, where whenever Amara applies a status effect to an enemy, she gains a chance to randomly electrocute, ignite, or melt that enemy. This chance is 7% per point, up to a total of 35% at 5 out of 5. Once again, this is another incredibly simple dot application tool, but with very strong synergies to our previous 2 skills. We apply a lot of dots between Amara doing Amara things already, Conflux, and Wildfire. Conflux's dots can also transfer through Wildfire, meaning a lot of enemies are being afflicted with a lot of dots, and a lot of different dots at that, giving us multiple Harmageddon stacks on every single enemy. Of course, Conflux also applying additional dots to enemies means that when those enemies explode through Catharsis, that's just more potential dots for Catharsis itself to also apply and continue chaining Wildfire through. Altogether, these are 3 skills that are incredibly synergistic with each other, which is incredibly interesting and pretty damn cool, even if not necessarily strong on their own merits most of the time. These 3 skills almost make up like a tiny little sub-tree within the overall red tree, with each of these skills kind of building on top of the last up until Conflux, which kind of feels like a capstone to those other 2 skills. Just completely perfectly synergizing with them and capping them off in a way that brings them up to their full power. It's very clear that these 3 skills were designed with each other in mind, and given that they end up being necessary to move down the tree, I imagine this was pretty intentionally designed overall. The only thing that is very strange is that Borderlands 3 did not launch with Harmageddon, and up until Harmageddon launched, applying a shit ton of status effects to a single enemy didn't really do a hell of a lot. The only thing that applying more elements to a single enemy would really provide is just simply boosting up Catharsis, but Catharsis has always had an obscenely long cooldown. So it was definitely a very strange situation. But at least in the modern day, we do now have Harmageddon, which does give these skills somewhat of a purpose. Point distribution between them, though, is pretty much completely subjective. The way most builds spend points, at least most done builds, you'll end up needing at least 1 point in Wildfire and 1 in Catharsis, but then you still need to spend another 4 points to get down to your capstone. Usually, I like to toss 3 into Wildfire, 1 into Catharsis, and 2 into Conflux. This gives me 24% spread chance, 14% for an extra effect, and the damage from Conflux doesn't really matter all that much anyways. Sometimes though, I do just go for a full 2-2-2 spread if I want Conflux procs to be a little bit more lethal for funsies, or I'll tailor the distribution further if a class mod is giving me points into one of these skills. Usually Conflux, it's most often Conflux from the Phase Zerker. But overall, these points are just forever going to be a part of Amara Red Tree build crafting. They are nearly completely unavoidable for a hell of a lot of builds, and if you're in the field of min-maxing, you're absolutely gonna be taking these. They had a very strange history, but with the addition of Harmageddon, they finally had a bit of a purpose, and at that, they were pretty damn good for that purpose. They're fun skills, they're very interesting in how they build off each other, and overall, I do really like them. It is just kind of a shame that dot effects in BL3 overall aren't that good. And Catharsis has an 8-second cooldown. Holy fuck, why does it have an 8-second cooldown? It's not that crazy of a fucking skill. Like, listen, I said earlier it should be like maybe 4 or 5. I don't even care if this didn't have a cooldown at all. Fuck it, I've played a mod where it doesn't have a fucking cooldown at all, and it was kind of really fucking fun. Was it a little obscene at that point? Yes, a little bit, but god damn it, it was fun, and I liked it, and I like this skill. Why is it 8 seconds? Fuck! That's gonna about do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all that. I'll be live right after this video goes up, right here on YouTube, and also over on my Twitch channel, where there'll be a link to down in the description below, and just below that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.